Well, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you. This is Gene Panasanko on Straight and Unfiltered, a channel for the business owners, entrepreneurs, attorneys, CPAs, everybody who is working around to help businesses succeed and get to the better and higher levels. The question that a lot of business owners are asking of themselves is, how would you like to have a competitive advantage? How can you maintain, if that's possible at all, life and business balance? And the gentlemen that we have as our guests today, Brian Gorman and Tony Carnesi, they are just the experts that you want to go to and get their pearls of wisdom. So Tony and Brian, I know we have been trying to get on this channel for quite some time, but because of your business, and now you're expanding also on the West Coast to LA. Congratulations to you both. And you on that, it's wonderful. So welcome to the channel, and let's kick it off.
Thank you, Gene.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Gene.
Tony, pleasure.
So I guess I'm just going to give you a little bit of we'll each give you our backgrounds. Brian, did you want to say something there? Oh, okay. I'm a recovering CPA, and what turned me on about getting into consulting was watching business owners sort of not fail, but go down in their ability, their profits reducing, their gross profits reducing. And I asked somebody I worked for one day, I said, why aren't we helping them? And he said, Tony, shut up and go on to your next engagement. So that's what really was my inspiration to help business owners. As a recovering CPA, I have evolved into a business improvement specialist. I certainly use my CPA background to help me do that. And I've learned a lot along the way. Brian, a little background on you before we talk about the Dubies.
Sure. So again, I'm Brian Gorman, and my career history really has to do with organizational change management. And I've worked on many change management engagements over the year: mergers and acquisitions, business growth, business downsizing. But one of the things that I learned along the way is that, in fact, organizations don't change. It's the people that change. So I've really come to understand that journey through change that we all take over and over and over again. And then I met Tony.
And that's an alliance which is really made in heaven. When we originally met, again, the names, Tony Carnesi, Brian Gorman, I've been a member of multiple chambers of commerce for many years. And again, the feedback I've been getting from business owners, executives that you guys have been working with and coaching them and training them how to evolve the business and propel it to the next level, get bigger, better, stronger, improve the leadership, improve the quality of lives for those people who run the businesses, who operate them, and the employees, because most of the businesses, they have employees, direct, employees or subcontractors. So you guys, you definitely have been able to deliver a great value proposition to those clients. So I really would like to speak about how Dubie Associates was put together, what was the event actually that propelled you into that stage, and how you have been growing along with growing your client list, which spans again from the East Coast to the West Coast. You've been based out of New York City, and now again you're also operating out of California, Los Angeles specifically. I do hope that they can extend all the benefits and tax breaks and whatever it takes to keep your business down there, because as we know, over the last year, it has been a massive exodus, not just of private citizens, but many small businesses and not so small businesses. You take a look at Tesla, you take a look at Oracle, they're moving out of state. I mean, those are multi-billion-dollar dents in the tax budgets of California. So I do hope that they will extend all the love and respect and all the benefits that it takes to keep you running the business and operating successfully and developing the client base down there and helping businesses. So go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Gene. So how the Dubies came together, well, we're both alum of Syracuse University. And about 4, maybe 5 years ago, Brian, I always get a little confused on that. I think it's 4 years. We met at an event for the New York Alumni Association, and I was part of the board, and we were looking for somebody to help us create a mentoring program for the younger alum. And one of the members of the board found Brian online. And I said, let's get him on there. And I learned that he was a coach. And I said, oh, another coach. I've met a lot of coaches over the years, a lot of consultants. And he said something during his, not presentation, but his workshop to the alum that really resonated with me. He said something brilliant about change. Brian, do you want to share that with Gene and the audience?
The question I asked is, if you're going to ask somebody to take on something new, like mentoring a young professional, what are they going to let go of in order to make the time, the headspace, the energy that they need to take on this new responsibility?
So right there, I said, here's a coach I want to get to know. So we had a meeting and Brian said, well, I want to see what you're all about. He saw me do a workshop on mastermind and the power of mastermind groups of business owners. And that's when we decided to get together. The name Dubie is purely organic. When we were doing our very first presentation, we didn't have a name yet. And we were doing a presentation on working on your business. And Brian wrote up, and then the person who was hosting us asked us, would you please write up something so I could pass it out? So Brian wrote this beautiful essay. He said, Tony is about what you need to do. He's a recovering CPA. He focuses on the processes, the procedures. I focus on who you need to be, because sometimes you have to show up differently to implement these changes that Tony recommends. I looked at Brian. I said, dude, we are the Dubies. And that's how the Dubies were born. Brian was a little hesitant. He didn't seem too crazy about the idea, but he's bought in due to my will, I think. I don't know. So that's how we became the Dubie Associates. Purely organic, and it's fun to introduce ourselves. Brian, how do you like to introduce yourself at a networking event?
I'm half a Dubie.
People will talk to half a Dubie much more likely than with a consultant or a coach. And it's about doing and being.
And if they've met one of us, when we introduce ourselves that way, they know, they tell us, I met your partner. So they make the connection just through the name.
It is a great name. When I've heard it first, when we met through the Chamber of Commerce, and then again, we sat down on more than one occasion, it's a great name. It definitely, triggers interest from the people. And as far as your backgrounds and expertise, I think it's a perfect alliance, because you really split responsibilities. You supplement each other in a very, very nice way, as opposed to many other duos that I'm familiar with, who basically duplicate each other, and consequently they're not being nearly as efficient, nearly as good as you guys are. So that's a great thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Gene. What's really interesting is we are very, very different people in terms of our temperament, our personality, how we interact with people, and we share a core set of values, and we share a belief that every business owner has the right to live into the dream that was theirs when they started their business.
This is an excellent statement, Brian. I think it should be written as one of the multiple amendments to the Constitution, that every business owner has that right. And Dubies with Tony Carnesi and Brian Gorman, those would be the people to help you get there. That's excellent. So last year has been absolutely, devastating for countless number of businesses. Some areas, hospitality businesses, restaurant industry, gyms, they've been all but decimated, especially in some states like New York and California. And coincidentally, again, you happen to operate in both of them as far as your headquarters are concerned, though, as far as I know, you have clients pretty much all across the continental US. So obviously it had an incredible impact on business advisors like yourselves. Do you want to talk, gentlemen, about exactly how it has been changing the way that your practice has been operating, and how you have been involved with the clients, and what, if anything, you have been doing differently in the meantime?
Brian, you want me to take that? You got it. Well, just before the pandemic, or at least a few months before the pandemic, we had decided to launch a podcast. It's Dubie time.
I enjoyed it. I told you, it's a great one. You have some great guests down there. Yeah.
Thank you very much. No, we really find it to be a lot of fun to bring a business owner on and talk about the things that they do and who they had to be successful when faced with a challenge, and letting them say it versus having a consultant tell people what's a great recommendation. But before the pandemic kicked off, we had made that decision to do that. So as the pandemic gained momentum, we realized this was the place that we needed to be: more virtual, more online, more in connection with our clients. So that felt sort of right in step with what we were trying to accomplish. And besides that, look, a lot of folks, especially small business owners, they look at consulting and coaching as a luxury. It's a different game now than it was 2 years ago. There's a lot of consultants and coaches out there, and the business has definitely slowed down as far as opportunities and being online, doing a lot more on Zoom. Brian was my Zoom pioneer. When I met Brian 4 years ago, he was doing everything on Zoom, and I was like, gee, I'm spending all this time walking to my clients, going to my clients, traveling to my clients. I'm like, he's got something. And one of the things I discovered working virtually with one client in particular, how well they adapted to being virtual. And they had been doing it for a while before COVID. So I think COVID just brought to light a lot of the things that we could have been doing earlier and just accelerated the process. And it's made coaching and consulting a little bit different, but now it's a Zoom virtual experience. Brian, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's it. Gene, we are going to get into one of the impacts of COVID was that we were about to launch a new service offering last spring that made no sense to launch last spring, and we're about to launch it now. So take it away, Tony.
And that's the 4-day work week. And Gene, you alluded to a little bit earlier. So if it's okay with you, we're going to talk about that a little bit and have a little fun with you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to give you an example. Okay. Most business owners can feel this as I speak about it. Your biggest customer, you have a deadline. It's Monday morning. You have a deadline that Friday with your biggest customer. They call you up and say, no, we need it by Wednesday morning.
You know, last night. That's how it works with so many people.
Okay, see that? And so if that happened last night, Gene, I'm just going to play around with you a little bit here. So the first thing a business owner will do, will say, okay, where are we with this project now? Okay, you're certainly not going to tell your customer no. Okay, not your biggest, most important customer. Then you're going to decide, where are we? What are the remaining steps left to do? What do we have to accomplish to get this done by Wednesday? So that's the status update. Clarify your goals. Who can help me? I'm not going to do this by myself, or else I'm going to be working 48 hours.
Oh, Tony and Brian.
Okay, that's right. Okay, there's one thought. And now who's going to help you? And so now you need to find that help. You have to communicate those goals, and you have to delegate, and you have to let go. Gene, were you really faced with that something last night on that end?
Absolutely.
Okay. What was your response? How did you respond to it?
Tough luck. Well, Tony and Brian, we both know that a lot of times, again, the business owners that we advise, you in your capacity, myself as a financial advisor of over 25 years, is the people that just tend to procrastinate. They put it off. They find gazillion reasons, everything in the book, everything under the sun. And the people who are more focused, because again, in my opinion, and I hope you will agree with me strongly on that, the discipline is really the key. It's creating the plan, and more importantly, sticking with the plan. Everybody, has those Christmas and New Year, thinking and obligations and planning. But again, it's really sticking with the plan longer than a few days or a couple of weeks, and having the discipline to really keep implementing all the steps that you came up with, either on your own or based on advice of the advisors and coaches like yourselves. So a lot of people, unfortunately, they just don't work the plan this way, and And then in addition to the discipline, you can have all the discipline in the world, but again, things happen. I mean, severe snowstorm that snowed your house in. You cannot move your vehicle of the driveway. I mean, your family member gets sick, whatever happens. So legitimate or illegitimate excuses, things happen. But that's why it makes it even more critical and crucial to really have the plan, stick with the plan, and front load as much as you possibly can in anticipation that down the line, probably things will happen, okay? And if they do happen, at least you're not going to be in such a terrible position that you would be otherwise.
That's really great. And what the customer contacting you and putting those things into place, and you've done some preemptive things by front loading it, but now you have to accelerate the entire process over a few days. And that's really what we're talking about. That's what I'm trying to use with this example to then take it to a more long-term approach versus,
right
here you've got one customer. What if you did that with all your customers on a regular basis? What would be the impact if you really looked at every project that approached you and said, how can we cut out all the stuff that we don't need to do right now? Okay, because that's another response that a business owner is going to have when a customer shortens a deadline. Where's the fluff? Cut it out. Why was it there to begin with? Okay. Why weren't you delegating more effectively and communicating those goals more effectively with your employees? Where does the communication come in? So those are some of the things I want to bring up as we talk about expanding that process, that thought process to a 4-day work week. Brian, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is there's very clear research that work expands to fill the time that we have committed to it. There's a lot of very powerful research around productivity, and I just want to cite a few findings there. Productivity is associated with employee engagement. 53% of employees give the minimum effort required to do and keep their jobs.
Staggering number, 53%. You're talking about more than a half
53%.
of employees. I mean,
Yeah,
speaking about the multi-gazillion dollar impact on the industries worldwide, because I know that you guys, you've been working with some companies outside of the US and you've been studying the companies. One of them, I believe, is where? In Australia, New Zealand, that part of the world.
New Zealand.
Tony, yeah.
Yep.
So let me just give a couple more numbers here. 34% of employees are actively engaged in their companies with their jobs. 13% are actively disengaged. And finally, companies with engaged employees outperform others by 202%.
The truly staggering numbers. So the question begs, why would not everybody in the world, would implement those kind of strategies to enhance the productivity, increase, efficiency of your business, and ultimately create better stream of revenue and improve the balance of work/life.
You couldn't say it better. And you brought up somebody we wanted to talk about. New Zealand, there's a company called Perpetual Guardian, financial services firm. They implemented the 4-day work week to great success. It was a long-term trial and it was done with great thought and processes, but they really bought into it and the employees bought into it. And as far as I know, that they are still doing it. They're working 4 days a week and it was very, very successful. Other places where the 4-day work week is gaining momentum or has shown, pardon me, to be effective. Microsoft in Japan conducted a trial over a summer, about 2 summers ago. They had a 40% increase in productivity. And though it may not be as applicable now as it was back then before COVID, their overhead costs decreased by 23% because their offices were open that much less. The Prime Minister of Finland wants to introduce it. The Prime Minister of, there was another country there. I had them somewhere. Oh no. Anyway,
right.
Somebody else wants, and where do we need it most? Americans work more than Japanese worker by 106 hours a year. More than Japanese workers. American workers work 248 hours a year, more than their British counterparts. 423 hours more than German employees. What does that tell you about the importance of maybe we should look at how we work differently and take a more efficient approach, and having a 4-day work week could be a wonderful goal. Though, Brian, I think you could speak to this best about, is we really talking about a 4-day work week? What are we talking about here?
So it might literally be a 4-day work week, or it might be instead of working 7 days a week, you're working 6. Or instead of 5, you're working 3 or 3.5. You know, there are different ways of cutting out the inefficiencies and the wasted time, the wasted effort. The real point is bringing your work and your life and that of your employees more into balance.
What would be the process normally, Tony and Brian? How, somebody who say is operating a small bodega in the city and they're fortunate enough to still be in business after the lockdowns and all the events that have been happening specifically in New York City and many other places across the US, 7 days a week, I mean, they can't afford a staff of multiple employees. They need to keep this business going regardless, because this is where they put their heart and soul and pretty much their lifetime savings into. What would be the process for that person to really reduce his involvement from 7 to 6 or hopefully, to 5 days a week? What would be your recommendation, with understanding that everybody is very unique, very different, and you guys, you really take huge pride, as far as I know, in customizing and coming out with those personalized approaches for every company, every business you advise and work with?
Well, it's interesting, the 4-day work week, especially for retail business, you're going to get a whole lot more resistance, and it might not be. Okay. I'm just getting a message on my screen. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no trouble.
The 4-day work week might not work for everybody. The first time I mentioned a 4-day work week to a room full of executives, the negativity that I was faced with was really overwhelming. But then when I talk to people, a lot more people get it. But when you're talking about a business that has to be retail and has to be open 7 days a week, there are a lot more hurdles and resistance to it, and it may not be possible. Bottom line, like with a bodega, unless somebody really doesn't want to be there and wants to delegate, and then that the owner themselves doesn't want to work 7 days a week, it's a tremendous amount of risks. How much cash is going back and forth? We've got to make sure that our customers are happy. That would not be a very good fit. Bottom line, I think. Brian, is there anything you want to add to that? Because
No, I think, there are different ways that it has to be tailored for different industries, different types of businesses. And as Tony said, someplace that's in a situation of running 24/7, it's going to be much more difficult to make happen successfully.
And probably it was not the best example I was trying to use,
Okay.
but what about the gym owners? Because if I belong to the gym, I don't care about your quality of life, so to speak. I would like to have that gym being available to me 7 days a week. And so would be most of the, most of the members of that gym or whatever that company is. So I understand that you really sit down with the clients or potential clients, prospective folks that you would consider working with, and you would probably review, the type of business, the lines of their activities, and then you would probably come up with a customized recommendation on how to structure the plan to be implemented to get where they're trying to get.
definitely, each one is going to be different. Each one is going to have its different hurdles and resistance. But whenever we work with a business owner, because we don't know what they really want to accomplish, we're going to start with, what do they want? What is their personal vision? Mr. Business Owner, Mrs. Business Owner, what do you want to have? What kind of life do you want to be leading? For example, and I was going to talk about it later, but I'm going to talk about it now. Somebody said to us, financial services company, Gene, well, we like coming in on Saturday and having our pastries and bagels together before we spend half a Saturday together. Okay. They didn't want to change. But if we work with a business owner and, Gene, maybe I'm going to turn around on you. How many days a week do you work? what would be some of the benefits to you if you shortened your work week?
Benefits would be incredible. As a financial advisor, though, I'm in a position where many of my clients, they work extremely hard during the week. So a lot of times, and I stress under regular circumstances, as opposed to the last year, which has been devastating pretty much to most of the businesses, unless you are with Amazon or Walmart, these guys, they've been swamped, obviously with business more than, but when it comes down to small businesses, if they're fortunate, again, to still be in business after everything that we went through, then again, a lot of times, the only time when they're available would be either late at night or on the weekends. And if that's where the client stands, then again, myself, I would be doing the best I can to really accommodate their needs at that specific time. But again, having 5 or 4 day week for somebody, in a normal position of an advisor or a consultant, that would be a remarkable thing, because that would free more time to really, clear your head and enjoy life, because, at some point people need to be enjoying lives and focusing on more than just business. But like I said, with all the challenges that most of my specific clients have had to go through, and myself along with the clients, it's not really a matter of, well, would I like to reduce the time frame, the number of days per week that I'm focusing on keeping my business going. It's really, can I still keep my business? Can I still stay in business, say a couple months from now? I have clients, they used to own, say, several restaurants, and now they're down from 4 to 1. And they're very brutally honest with me, telling me, hey, Gene, we really have no clue. And we're praying that we still get to keep this business a month from now based on everything that's going on. So it really depends on every specific business.
Absolutely. So if we were going to work with a business with multiple employees where that customer interaction can be delegated and moved around, we're going to tell you a little bit about that now. So Brian, do you want to talk about personal vision? Then I'll go into what's in it for me.
Yeah, Gene, you quoted from our website when we got started here.
Right.
So many business owners go into business to live into a vision that they have, and they end up working for the business instead of the business working for them.
The reality turns out to be very different from the dream. Yeah.
And I pushed back on you before we started recording when you said very few people can actually live into their dream. And my pushback is very few people do, and many people can. So where we really start is working with the business owner to reconnect to their personal vision. Then the next thing that happens, and I quoted before some numbers about people being disengaged and engaged, and the value of having people actively engaged in business. We ask the business owner, what is the vision of those people who work for them? Why are they coming to work? Because it's not about pay. Yes, that's a piece of it. No denying that. But each employee has their own dream, their own want to live into life. And if you can align that with what you need from them as a business, they are going to be engaged. They are going to be part of that body of employees that can bring you up to 202% better performance. So it's not just about reconnecting with your own passion. It's about, for most business owners, connecting for the first time to the passion of your employees and working to align that. If I'm working for you, Gene, and I'm doing what I love to do, you're going to benefit, I'm going to benefit, your business is going to benefit.
Well
Tony?
said, Brian. Absolutely. Totally agree with that. A happy employee is a productive employee. And when you have a combination of two of them, your business is going to keep growing as opposed to going sideways or down. So yeah, well said, Brian. I agree.
And the way I say it, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Brian to talk about one of the first things that's needed in order to implement change in an organization, especially 4-day work week. I like to call it My favorite radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me? As an employer, you know what's in it for you. Do you know what's in it for you, for them? Do you know what's in it for your employees? Because the alignment of the what's in it for me can produce really amazing results. Brian, let's talk about some trust.
So if you're going to make this work, you need to trust your employees. They need to trust you. That's a piece of the foundation for this. And in terms of trust, I use a model that was developed by Judith Glaser. Judith passed away about 2 years ago, but her life's work really was around the neuroscience of conversation and how to build trust. For me, trust is the only acronym that I have. It's TRUST. It's the only acronym that I use in my work. The first piece of this is transparency. And transparency is not only being transparent about what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, whatever. It's also about being transparent in what you need from others. R, relationship. Relationship is about seeing the world through the other's eyes. That's why, just before I was saying, it's so important to understand what's important for your employees. Seeing the world through their eyes helps you and them strengthen relationship. U is for understanding, which is that deep understanding that comes from active listening, not just what's being said, but what's not being said. S is shared success. One of the things that Tony really pushes with business owners is, why are you giving holiday bonuses just because it's the holiday? Tie them to performance. My success comes with your success. So shared success. And then the last T is truth telling, telling the tough truths. Admitting, I don't know how many business owners we talked to when COVID first hit, who said, I don't know what to tell my employees. Tell them you don't know what to expect. They know you don't know what to expect. Don't sit there and tell them everything's going to be fine. Don't sit there and tell them that, the world's going to be back to normal in 3 months. Tell the tough truths.
It's an excellent point you're making, Brian. I mean, trust, and integrity, are critical in dealing with your employees, with your business associates, with your clients. You gave a great example. Hey, if you don't have an answer, specifically speaking about the pandemic, the lockdowns, I mean, these are truly uncharted territories, unprecedented circumstances that the whole country, the world pretty much is going through. So it's okay. It's okay to admit to the people, hey, I don't have an answer. I'll do the best to get the best answer as soon as I possibly can. It depends on multitude of different sources and circumstances. But yeah, be upfront, be straightforward with employees. And the employees, they will appreciate your being honest with them.
Real quickly, just one other example, and then I'm going to turn it back to Tony. I was coaching a business owner who has about 150 employees, an international business, and has 3 children in grade school, a husband that works at the CDC. And she said, I don't know what to do. I'm trying to homeschool my children alone and still run this business. And I said, you need help from your team. Tell them that. 3 of our 150 employees had children. They could afford to step in and help her.
Good example.
And the reason why we bring up trust is because when a business owner comes into his staff and he or she says, hey, we're going to a 4-day work week, how many times has that business owner said that they were going to do something? Do they have credibility that that's going to stick through? And that's why having that trust before you introduce change, for example, the 4-day work week, you need to have that so your employees think you're serious and you're going to carry this through. I mean, I think we've all worked for other people in the past, and how often does somebody come in, oh, we're going to start doing this, we're going to start doing that. Hey, what happened to that idea you had 3 months ago? Oh, we got too busy, we couldn't do it. So that's why it's important to have the trust as the first step to be able to implement change. And then that's when we start really getting people to look at what they're currently doing and being. That self-reflection from the top of the tier to the very bottom is the very next step. As let's take stock of what we're doing and being. How do we pull this off? What are the processes and procedures? What are those extra things we're doing that are unnecessary? Brian, did you want to talk? So that's the process side. You need more different structure. You need more different processes and procedures. And I'm going to bring this up a little later, but I'm going to say it now. It's disruption times 2. We're disrupting the current status quo, and then we're going to create a better process and procedure, and that's less disruptive. So that's the doing part. On the being side, Brian, what do you want to add as far as that goes?
Really a couple of things here. I love the work of Greg McEwen in his book, Essentialism, the Disciplined Pursuit of Less. So, just as Tony is saying, what is it that you're going to let go of? What is it that doesn't have to be done at all? What is it that I can delegate to others to do? And then really look at what am I doing and who am I being as a business owner? Am I being the fireman who's always out there fixing other people's problems? Tony and I met with one business owner who chose not to work with us because he loved being the fireman. He was working 7 days a week, fixing problems. And he sat there with the head of his HR department saying, I have a manager who spends his entire day surfing porn. Excuse me, Mr. Business Owner, but he's working for you. You're paying him to surf porn.
He's going to want to work 7 days.
Really comes down to leadership and accountability of the staff.
It absolutely does. Are you there to be a friend, or are you there to lead your company? Are you strictly there holding people accountable, making their lives miserable, or are you balancing that accountability with empathy? Are you being a servant leader, or are you being a servile leader who bends to your employees' every whim? It's really about figuring out who you need to be, as well as what you need to do in order to lead your company forward.
Very true. Tony.
Then going on, and just one of the things I love to ask business owners is, are you working for your employees, or your employees working for you? So now we're going to move on to the productivity of those employees. If you're going to implement a shorter work week, we're not talking about taking 40 hours over 5 days and putting 40 hours into 4 days. We're talking about cutting the work time by 20%. Right. And one of the keys that every business owner is going to say, what about productivity? We've got to maintain productivity. So what needs to be done in order to do this? Well, you've got to measure. Okay, being the recovering CPA, let's have some fiscal management here. What are your report cards saying? How can we track our productivity and make sure we're still meeting our clients' needs and the needs of everybody else in the organization? So measuring, KPIs, that favorite acronym to throw out by all CFOs. What are the key performance indicators in an organization that you need to track as you conduct this trial of actually shortening the work week for individuals? It is so important to do this, because if you don't pay attention to productivity, you know what you're going to do as a business owner? You're going to say, you know what, this isn't working. Screw it. Because I just realized one of our customers didn't get what they were supposed to because we took Friday off. Well, figure it out, but then go slowly. Measure twice, cut once is so important for this part of the process of implementing a 4-day work week. Brian, did you want to add to that? Or I'm going to keep going. Okay. And one of the things where I mentioned earlier with my example of that shortened deadline, you've got to let go. You're not going to walk in and tell all your employees, hey, we're moving to a 4-day work week. You're going to ask them, excuse me one second. You're going to ask them, how can we move this to a 4-day work week? I need your help. And you're going to empower your employees to take the brunt of the workload, to take the lead. Mr. Plant Supervisor, Mr. Floor Supervisor, What do you think we could do? In turn, that floor supervisor should ask their employees. Because if you take that top-down approach, people will buy in because they're helping themselves have a better work-life balance. You've already asked them what's in it for them when we talked about that earlier. And now you're making it apparent that you really care. They're going to buy into this. So it's letting go and delegating is so much more important. And now, once you've done those things, you're always going to have somebody not buying in. Right, Brian?
Absolutely. In my history in organizational change management, from top to bottom, is about 30% who don't make it through a big change like this. You know, they may love coming in for pastries on Saturday, and you're not going to be there and open Saturdays anymore. Whatever the reasons, about 30% are not going to buy in. What's important is to manage this correctly, to lead this correctly, because the first people to leave when you're not doing what you said you were going to do and you're not doing it effectively are those people who are best able to change. Years ago, I was working with a telecom when they were going through deregulation. And they came to the company I was working with at the time and they said, you know, we thought this deregulation would be great and we would go from being an elephant in our industry to being a jaguar. They said, we handled the change poorly and we ended up an elephant on Slim Fast. That's not what you want to happen. Tony?
So now that you've done this, you know, let's talk about some of the things in the current environment. You know, what is some of the low-hanging fruit that we can talk about that you could first start working with to shorten your work week? We always go straight to distractions. You know, in the old days, people would spend too much time on the phone. Now
Still do, I guess.
we do, but we spend too much time in Zoom. One great example of what to control there is one of our clients, every meeting with the leadership team has a chronological order, how much time we're going to spend on each subject, period. There is no negotiation there. We're going to get it done. We're going to get out of there. Okay.
If I can build on that, Tony,
Mhm.
they have a facilitator and they have a timekeeper.
That's right.
Meetings are not for reporting. The reports go out ahead of time. Meetings are for problem solving, for informing decision making.
Because in these times of COVID, how often do you hear somebody say, I'm Zoomed out today? I've had so many Zoom meetings. Okay. Why? It comes down to the management of those meetings. That's something so easily that could be done and shorten people's work days right off the top. You know, a lot of companies have IM structure, the different IM apps to use. How many people abuse that when they're having a subject? Sometimes get on the phone. You know, you just said we're still on the phone. Sometimes we need to get back on the phone and have a quick discussion versus going back and forth. You know, the key is to, you know, I don't like to say manage time, but there's priority in everyone's day. And if we keep allowing ourselves to be distracted, those priorities lose precedence. Uninterrupted time, creating, you know, here we are in a Zoom environment, and now your employees keep typing, hey, I need this, I need that. No. This is my time for you to leave me alone. Okay. And every employee should have that opportunity, because in the past, when you had an office, you would close the door. There'd always be somebody who would still knock on the door and come in and interrupt you. What did you do? You locked the door. Okay. Well, here's a similar situation. Now that a lot more of us are working virtually in the world of COVID, well, you've got to lock the door. Turn off your emails. Turn off your IMs. That's my uninterrupted time. Make sure you communicate that to the rest of the team. Have the whole team buy into and share with one another what their uninterrupted time is. Those are some of the things. Okay, those are some of the easy things to do before you really get into the process of what somebody is doing and how many hands are in the pot. You know, I had one consultant coach tell me many years ago, you know, life's not a part, you know, business is not a party. And somebody in the class said, what do you mean? Well, you know, something happens, something comes in and everybody has to talk about it. It doesn't need to be a discussion. There needs to be a process in place. Those discussions are for the anomalies, the things that come out of nowhere that are totally unique. The regular course of business should not be a group activity in many instances, or a mixed up activity. Brian, anything you want to add there? You want to, let's share some client stories. I have two in particular. Which one do you want to take first?
Let's protect the clients' names, but definitely I love when my guests share the stories, the real life stories with their clients. So would love to hear them. Tony and Brian, go ahead, please.
So we were working with one client whose employees were saying things like, I need more direction. I need a job description. We need to meet. And the business owner was so busy fighting fires that there were no job descriptions. There were very few meetings. And when the meetings did occur, there was no real agenda to them. And then COVID hit. And all of a sudden, he's online in a Zoom meeting, in a Scrum call, actually, every day. And his business was able to turn around because he was finding out from his employees what wasn't working. He was giving them the direction that they needed to meet their clients' expectations.
Great example. So it's actually the environment that forced him into that position that allowed him to actually navigate his business out of all those negative predicaments and actually take it to the next level. When I hear the story like that, I think of the Chinese character that stands for danger, but the same exact character means opportunities. So again, depending on the perception, it's the glass is half full or half empty. So it's a great example, Brian. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
And, when you think about that, that brings to mind when we were speaking to a bunch of managing partners of law firms. And, here our client, because he could see his people in his office, he had this false perception that he was on top of what was going on because he could see them. Another example of that was speaking to a bunch of managing partners of attorneys. The older partners said, I hate it when I don't see the staff at their desk at 7 o'clock at night. I'm there. Why aren't they there? Well, my question to that individual was, well, how do you know they're working when they're sitting there? Now, managing from a COVID environment and managing virtually and managing not in touch, you focused on the results. Instead of being concerned seeing them at their desk, did you take care of that client? Is the client happy? Did you take care of that project? There's a deadline. And that's what COVID has done and this client that we were working with. Everything's fine. I know where they are. Now he didn't know where he was, and he started asking really good questions, and he wanted answers. And this was something he was unwilling to do before COVID hit. And then he was forced to do it, like you just said. Did you want to talk about another financial advisor that asked his employees to join him on the journey? Brian's?
Absolutely.
I would love to speak. Yeah, I would love, we do have just a few minutes left for the benefits of our audience. We're trying to keep it within a certain time frame, but I definitely would love to hear at least briefly that example with a financial advisor, Brian.
This was actually a very successful financial advisor. And when we sat down with him, he said, I've been sitting on this plateau for a long time. He said, I have leads on my desk that have been there for 30 days. I have not yet called. He said, I wouldn't even put a lead on my desk until I made that first phone call when I started. It's time to turn this around. He had a very clear vision of where he wanted to go next. He sat there and he described the office building that he wanted to move into. He described, you'll appreciate this, Gene, decorating 2 different conference rooms in 2 different styles of dining room furniture because people love to do their financial planning around the dining room table. He really had a clear idea of where he wanted to go. So there were a couple of things. First, we asked him, what would you do if one of your team members had leads sitting on their desk for 30 days? He said, I'd take them away. I said, so who are you going to give those leads to that have been sitting on your desk if you don't follow up with them? And he committed to giving them to one of his staff if he didn't follow up. Then we asked him, You know where you want to go. Where do your team members want to go? And he didn't know. So he took each of them out to lunch and asked that question. And Tony, what were the results?
He has a staff, and I've, Gene, in full respect to you, I've known him for a long time before I met you.
Right.
I'd gone through a couple of investment advisors. I work with one of his team members.
Right.
And I've never loved an investment advisor more than I love this gentleman. Okay. He is always helpful. He's always right on. And I just feel like he is so fully engaged to what I'm doing that, he's the type of person you just want to work with. And he's part of that team. And I think that goes for anybody who adopts learning the vision of their employees and helping them fulfill it. You're going to have an engaged employee.
Comes from the leadership, as you, Tony and Brian pointed out. It comes to the leadership formulating the plan and disseminating that plan and making sure that the team embraces the plan along with you. And that's how you really get to the next level, get successful, and what have you. It comes down again, what is the business purpose? What is the purpose of the revenue? How do you create that balance? And that's how everything falls in place. Well, gentlemen, I truly believe that we had a very constructive conversation. You shared more than a few real nice pearls of wisdom. I do hope that our esteemed audience will appreciate it. And I do hope that some of them would love to get in touch with you to see how you can help them in getting their businesses and practices evolve to the higher and the next level. So we're going to post information and contact info, but at least briefly state, your website, your emails, and we'll duplicate it on the description of this channel.
Okay, our website is www.do-beassociates.com. That's dubieassociates.com. I'm Tony at dubieassociates.com. Brian?
I'm Brian at dubieassociates.com. That's BRIAN. And our podcast is It's Dubie Time. And it's on Apple, on Google, and on many of the other podcast platforms.
Yeah, it's a great podcast. It's a great podcast. I signed up for that, and I truly enjoyed the great content you gentlemen have been putting on it. So, Tony, I'm sorry, you were just about to say something.
Nope. I was just going to say that's a great place to sign up for the It's Dubie Time podcast, and you just said it. So thank you, Gene.
My pleasure.
And lastly, and in our closing statements, 4-day work week, it's a thought process. It's just increasing your work-life balance, whether you make it to 4 days or not. That's beside the point. That's your goal. But if you could really shorten your work week by 5 days and have more time to spend with your family, if your employees could do their hobbies, or you could pursue your hobbies, how would you feel? That's just some of the benefits, all the while maintaining productivity. So, Gene, I know we're on time, so I just want to say, Gene, when times get tough in business, it's Dubie time.
You keep going with Dubie time. Makes a lot of sense. Brian.
Thank you, Gene.
Absolutely. Well, again, Tony Carnesi, Brian Gorman, thank you very much for joining us. I know you are on a tight schedule as well. You have clients to attend to. So again, thank you so much for getting on. And I do hope to see you on my program on my channel sometime in the future to share with what's happening and some more, great success stories. All right. And to our audience, I do hope that you folks enjoyed this presentation. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to spread the word, forward it to your friends and clients and business associates. That's how we keep spreading the word and growing this community. Thank you very much. Good luck to everybody. All right, folks. Cheers.